So we had some good news relating to vehicle registrations today. So vehicles from Britain, which were here in Spain before the end of the transition period, obviously now from the 1st of January onwards, when you become to register them, they will be considered non-EU vehicles. So when I say non-EU, I mean administratively in terms of the paperwork. Okay, so but this obviously we're in a sort of a limbo at the moment of what do we do with vehicles which were here before, and can we prove that they were here before, and what are the technical requirements, and blah blah blah. It's to be honest with you, every week in this last 6 weeks since Brexit, there's been something new. But what we can confirm here in Andalusia, now in other parts of Spain it's different, but I just wanted to talk about Andalusia at the moment. Now, what we did confirm last week, and this could change at any moment, this is what the technician said to me, but one of the technicians who's in charge of signing off the documentation in Mijas, which is probably one of the busiest ITV stations here on the Costa del Sol, and this was then later confirmed by the technician in El Viso, which is just down the road from our office, is that vehicles which have got EU type approval, I'm talking about vehicles from the UK now, which have got EU type approval and were registered in the UK before the 31st of December 2020, and that EU type approval is figured on the section K of the logbook and on the manufacturer's plates, these vehicles will not have any further technical documentation requirements at the ITV. Okay, by that I mean they only have to take a certificate conformity or a ficha técnica reducida done by a Spanish technician to pass the test. All right. In other parts of Spain, they are asking for, now in Valencia, for example, we had one, they're asking for individual conformity documents and stuff, even though the vehicle was here before the end of the transition period, the withdrawal agreement, sorry. And yeah, but here in Andalusia at the moment, as it stands, and as they said to me, this could change tomorrow if they bring out another order. But as long as the vehicle meets the requirements, then it can go through the ITV as it did before. Now, that left us with the uncertainty of the taxes. Now, we know that vehicles have to pay special registrations tax, but this is all vehicles. But what about the import tax? Well, the DGT issued a letter on the 7th of January, which basically stated that any vehicles from Great Britain registered after the 1st of January would need to present a DUA document. Okay, DUA document is proof that the vehicle has gone through the customs and excise process. All right. Now, obviously there's a trade agreement in place. In this letter from the DGT, it said although vehicles will not have to pay tax and duty, it still has to go through the DUA process, or the customs and excise process, to produce the document DUA. And then when we spoke to a DUA agent, or a customs and excise agent who's in charge of giving us the DUA, they said, but we haven't got the protocol to waive the taxes, so currently they're going to have to pay the taxes. And anyway, it's all got a bit messy, and that's something that still needs to be cleaned up. But what I want to concentrate on is vehicles that have been here before the 31st of December, okay, but still aren't registered in Spain or in the process of being registered. So we had confirmation this week that if we can prove that the vehicle was here before the 31st of December 2020, then when we come to register these vehicles at the DGT, we will not have to present the DUA document, the proof that it's been through customs and excise. Okay, so what paperwork do you need to do this? Well, let's start with the most obvious one. If the vehicle had registered provisional plates, even though they'd run out, okay, which is something new because before we were told we couldn't let them run out, but even if they ran out, it proves that the vehicle was here before the end of the year, and we won't have to present the DUA. If the vehicle passed the ITV test before the end of last year, then that's fine, because it proves it started the administrative process before the end of the year, and it won't have to present a DUA from customs and excise. Other ways of proving are if you've got travel documents, so if you brought your vehicle over on a ferry and that proves that the vehicle landed in Spain before the end of last year, that could be used. If you got fined, if you've got any sort of official stamped document, you know, who would have thought that a fine would, you'd be grateful for a fine? Well, you might be grateful for a fine now if you're trying to register a vehicle and you need to prove that it was in the country. If you got fined for speeding in your British car and whichever format that fine took, as long as it's got a stamp on it, it's got the registration number on it, well, there you go, it proves that you're in the country. All right, other things that we've got going through, which we don't know if they're going to work yet or not, are insurances. So there's some companies here who insure British cars, but they had to send out an inspector to do an inspection on the vehicle, and then that was signed off, and then the insurance policy was put in place, and that was underwritten here or where it was. But anyway, the documents are Spanish, and we're going to try one of them. So, you know, there's obviously various things that you might have. So you might have been to an official garage and have a stamp which proves that you've had work done. Now, whether that's good enough proof, I don't know, to be honest with you, because we haven't tried any of those yet. This only came out this week, but it could be. But the long and short of it is that if your vehicle was here before the end of last year, for the end of the withdrawal agreement, and you can prove that with using documentation, then you've got a chance of basically not having to go through the customs and excise process. It's also worth mentioning, like I did in my other video about the cars, is that if you are registering a vehicle for change of residence, which is obviously a lot of people out there that qualify for that at the moment, because a lot of people have taken residency in the last 3 or 4 months, is that both the extra technical requirements at the ITV and the tax at customs and excise isn't applicable anyway. All right, so always special registrations tax, as long as the documentation is correct. Then this has always been the case for third country nationals, along with EU citizens, when they're bringing their personal belongings into Spain, which includes their vehicle. They evidently have to complete the paperwork trail, so the registration process is exactly the same, but you do have the right to waive the taxes on the import. So yeah, that's good news. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. This is our local DGT that we're working with, and we've managed to get a few cars through. That one actually had, believe it or not, a voluntary ITV, which they did last year, which I've always been an advocate that they're not worth the paper that they're written on, but evidently in this case we didn't know this was going to crop up. Having a voluntary ITV actually worked, because it proved the vehicle was in the country. So you know, hey, I had to eat my words a little bit with that one, because I said, what's the point of having one? It's not worth the paperwork it's written on. All it tells you is that the vehicle is roadworthy, but it's registered in the UK, and voluntary ITV here, unless it's a ITV for matriculation purposes and you're registering the vehicles, no point having a voluntary ITV. Well, there you go. On that front, I was wrong, because the voluntary ITV was actually sufficient proof for the vehicle not to go through the customs process. And we do have a couple of vehicles going in with other bits of documentation which we've put in yesterday, and we'll let you know if that worked, and if it does, I'll update this video and let you know. So good news for vehicles, British vehicles at the moment. What I wouldn't do is I wouldn't hang about in getting them registered, because no doubt after the first 3 months of this year, the police will probably be coming down a lot harder on them, and now is a good opportunity to get your vehicles registered onto Spanish plates, or if not, get them sent back to the UK.